Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Ari and Big Mike are proud to present the greatest podcast in the world. No snowflakes allowed, and summer is coming.
I'm about to get myself a sign that says, "No snowflakes allowed and summer is coming." This way, we'll do it in one take every time. This is the podcast that was started by two guys on cigar night.
See, it's going to become a running joke about how I don't remember how to do the intro, and then people are going to start saying, well, why don't you tape it once and then just start your intro like that every time? You know that.
That's fine, but we have our reasons.
Yeah, well, you just think it's funny that I screw things up.
Yes, I do.
All right.
Okay, so we were discussing how the cavalry is not coming. About mental health problems in this country, and we're discussing certain things about whether or not psychiatry or psychology can be trusted to address these problems. There's a book I read a couple of years ago. It's called The Collapse of Complex Societies by Joseph Tainter. And he makes a point that's very relevant to what we're discussing right now today. The book is based on the notion that as society gets more and more complex, the people sort of at the top of society who are running things, it takes more and more energy to supply them with the information they need to run a society. And
wait, I'm going to pause you right there. I got
Okay.
a quick question for you. Now let's look at the United States presidency. How many members of George Washington's cabinet were there?
5, I think.
4.
4. Okay.
How many members of the current cabinet do we have?
20, I'm guessing.
Somewhere around there, right? Why? Because the situation's gotten more and more complex. And with each member of the cabinet, what do they have? They have undersecretaries, they have assistants, they have people doing all sorts of different jobs. And so as you create more cabinets, you create more and more people. Next thing you know, there's like so many people. Like, I wouldn't want to be president. How could you make any decision? Because you're just going to be like screwing over somebody at some point.
Right. So as these bureaucratic systems get more and more expensive, and you devote more and more energy to supporting them, the people who are actually producing stuff that keeps the system running become fewer and fewer. And the people who are consuming this stuff by ostensibly running the society become more and more, and they get more and more expensive. And eventually, the system can't hold. And what Tainter says is that a lot of people count on producing more scientists who are more engineers who will invent more things and make it so that we can produce all these giant bureaucracies need. And what Tainter says is that's not realistic. And one of the examples he uses to prove that is, let's say you're going to recruit 100 scientists. So you have 100 scientists. You have 10 of them who are in the top 10% of the group, and you have 10 of them who are in the bottom percent of the group. And each scientist you recruit, the average quality of the pool of scientists you have recruited gets lower and lower and lower, because you are recruiting more and more from that middle part. You see? So that the average quality of your scientists and the goes down as you recruit more and more of them. The same has to be true for mental health professionals, for example. As you are recruiting new ones, the ones who are in the top 10 of the class are only 10% of any given cohort of mental health professionals, and the rest of them are from the bottom 90%. And as we said before in one of our previous episodes, a lot of times a bad therapist could do a lot more harm than doing nothing at all.
You know, it's funny you bring that up. You know, as you were talking, I remember when I was a child, my dad took me to see Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan was speaking at the Museum of Natural History in New York, and he, I think it was the Museum of Natural History. I don't know. I was like 8 or 9 years old.
That sounds like a place he'd speak.
You know, yeah. And so he was speaking, And he said something that many, many years later, when I became a counselor and I was working with people, that one of my mentors, Rabbi Dr. Avram Tversky, is itself, said as well. They both said the exact same thing in just different ways, but they basically said this exact
radically different outlooks too.
100%. But they both said the same thing. They both said that the more I know, the more I know that I don't know. And that's something called humility. Right? What is lacking from when we talk about mental health and getting better is humility. One of the greatest therapists I ever met in my life, this guy was an addictions and crisis counselor in Israel, right? His name, by the way, I'm going to lay out his name here, but he was a man by the name of Barak Schechter. One of the greatest, I really think he was phenomenal. But he got screwed for political reasons, right? The man had a great brain, and now he's doing other stuff, But the world missed out on it. Why? Because he thought differently than other people, And he's not the only one like that. Like, where's the humility? Like, there's such a humility when it comes to these things that we're lacking. Like, I don't know everything. You don't know everything. Nobody in the world knows everything. We don't even know a drop in the bucket of an ocean, right? But we think we do, and we're spouting off all these ideas. Most of what I'm saying here is my opinion, right? And I can back it up with like different facts and this, that. But you know what, though? You can argue the opposite side of what I'm saying and back it up with facts too. But we need real humility. We need maturity. We need to understand that we don't know everything, and that what we're really doing is trying to find things out, and we're trying to learn, and we need to be able to question the science. And if, like I said in the last episode, if we can't question science, then it's propaganda. Because science can be questioned. Because the goal of science is ultimately to find the truth. What is really going on? And we're not doing that in proper way if we can't question.
You sound like something Thomas Sowell said about how much knowledge it takes just to learn the scale of your own ignorance. I'm going to give you an example from math. The rational numbers, right? 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, right? One number divided by another. They are what they call dense on the number line, which means if you have any two rational numbers, you could pick any two of them, you can always find a rational number in between them. For example, if you have 0 or 0.0001 and 1/2, you can find the number 1/3, which is between your first number and 1/2. And then you can find another number in between them, right? A quarter is between 0 and a third, and then an eighth is between a 0 and a quarter. And you can keep on going and doing that forever. So the rational numbers are dense on the number line. But here's the really freaky part about it. The irrational numbers, the numbers that cannot be expressed as a fraction. If you're going to pick any number at random, like you take a 10-sided die and roll it infinity times, they are not just an infinite number, they are an infinity that can't even be counted. That's been proven also by the mathematicians. So that even though the rational numbers are dense on the number line, and it seems that they are so numerous, because these are the numbers we can know something about. That's the thing about rational numbers. You can know something about them. They're a counting number, and on the bottom of it is another counting number. But the irrational numbers, the numbers that you can't even write out because it's an infinite string of numbers that never repeats, you can't really know much of anything about nearly any of these irrational numbers. And they outnumber the rational numbers by an
amount that you can't even figure.
You can't even describe it. It's like the dark sky at night, and the numbers you can know something about are like little tiny stars on this dark sky. So the amount we as humanity could know compared to what there is to know is absolutely stunning. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's actually scary. And I mean, listen, the reality is that we all have mental health issues according to somebody nowadays. But the reality is that we don't. Like real mental health issues spring from several sources. One of them is natural, right? There are people that if you go through history, like I talked about before, who, you look at them and you know that they've had some sort of mental illness. You have ones that are based off of trauma. You have, there's various different things, but here's the thing. There's a difference between sad and depressed. There's a difference between excited and manic. There's a difference between so many different real mental health issues. But it's become easy to say, I'm depressed. It really is. I'm depressed. No, you just don't have a purpose. Like, if we had, I tell you, this is why I love, Viktor Frankl so much. When we have meaning in our lives, this is a man who spent 4 years in Auschwitz and survived it because he found meaning. Right? And he had meaning. He was the head of the largest and the most powerful psychiatric hospital in Vienna before the war. Then spends 4 years in a camp. And then comes out and writes this amazing book, Man's Search for Meaning. And it's phenomenal to find meaning in what we're doing, to find a purpose in why we're living our lives, right? No matter what the purpose is. But when we have goals, we have things to shoot for, we have hope, right? Hope is a powerful thing. All these things. Now, mind you, we've got some serious issues. And you know what's crazy? I remember I was at this conference once, and this psychologist was up there, and David something or other, I can't remember his last name, and he was so he was saying that they did this study in New York, and they went into the projects, and then they went to Scarsdale and a couple other rich areas, and they what did they do? They started talking to different people, and they found that when it comes to mental illness, the richer people had a higher level of mental illness than the poor people. Right? Well, why? Because what are you doing physically? Like, Duke, one of the most prestigious universities in the world, came up with a study 20 years ago that if you do 30 minutes of anaerobic exercise a day, then most people are on antidepressants won't need them anymore. It's like, but we don't talk about these things. We don't talk about the real things that will get us healthier. Like, as human beings, is to work. Listen, I'm in pain. I'm hurting. How am I going to get out of that pain? I have two options. I can either sit in it or I can face it. And if I face it, I'll heal through that pain. And when I heal through it, like, my life becomes better because now I can take those tools and help others myself. But we don't do that. We do on individual bases, but as a general rule, we don't. We don't understand that we are essentially a pack animal. Humans are like a pack animal, like wolves, right? Where we're supposed to be together. If you look at history, we were always acted like pack animals. We were in small villages. We kept the families together. Blah blah blah. Like all these things that we used to do, protect the poor, help each other out. Like, we don't do that the way we once did. Now we have organizations to do this. No, it used to be on us. We used to have communities, and when we do those things, and when we heal those things, and we help each other, it's like we start healing ourselves, and like, we're not doing the simple, basic stuff that we could be doing. If we worked on ourselves more, if we did the hard work and had the discipline necessary to do those things, a lot of what we're doing in this world today would disappear.
Sounds off.
So I want to thank you all for listening. Like, that's the end of this series. I appreciate you all for paying attention. I love y'all. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. And y'all have yourselves a great day.
And of course, do not forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a good week.